back with the Sherlock. Yay. Make sure all the things are working. Da da dum. Da da dum. Yes, we are still a little late. My cat was being herself again. She's now apparently the night huntress, so yeah, that's convenient for me. And if that wasn't enough sarcasm, it is highly inconvenient for me, but whatever. Ugh, pet parenting, I tell ya. So, we're gonna read some stories. Getting our dose of fiction in. Where is that? Is good. That is good. Okay. Where is it? Hang on. Sorry. I got a little bit excited. I saw one of my I shouldn't be getting excited for that one. I have a snow background. Bug. God dang it. I don't know if I'm going to remember this, so I'm going to tell it now. I went flying and I got my hands dirty. And so I was getting, there's a big cardboard box with the paper towels in it, but like the grease paper towels, I don't know, that sort of a thing. The blue ones. And I was pulling it out and I realized that there was like this big spider web in the hole, and I was like, "Huh, I wonder where that came from." As I'm pulling out this paper towel, and this gigantic freaking spider comes out of it with the paper towel, freaks me out. And yeah, I like spiders, so I told my instructor, I was like, "It's a big spider," and he's like, "Thought you liked spiders," and I said, "I do." And then of course I was cooing at it, and it was so cute and it was gigantic. But that initial surprise was surprising to him as well. But yeah, that was bug thing. Anyway, the resident patient we are starting with. We are on the Memoirs of Sherlock Holmes. We are starting with the resident patient. We're getting right down to it. Making sure all the things are good. You can see the book. Perfect. Okay. Boom. And ready to go. Hem. Hang on. Okay. The resident patient. Glancing over the somewhat incoherent series of memoirs with which I have endeavored to illustrate a few of the mental peculiarities of my friend, Mr. Sherlock Holmes, I have been struck by the difficulty which I have experienced in picking out examples which shall in every way answer my purpose. For in those cases in which Holmes has performed some tour de force of analytical reasoning and has demonstrated the value of his peculiar methods of investigation, the facts themselves have often been so slight or so commonplace that I could not feel justified in laying them before the public. On the other hand, it has frequently happened that he has been concerned in some research where the facts have been of the most remarkable and dramatic character, but where the share which he has himself taken in determining their causes has been less pronounced than I, as his biographer, could wish. The small matter which I have chronicled under the heading of A Study in Scarlet, and that other later one connected with the loss of the glorious Scot, may serve as examples of this Scylla and Charybdis which are forever threatening the historian. It may be that in the business of which I am now about to write the part which my friend played is not sufficiently accentuated, and yet the whole train of circumstances is so remarkable that I cannot bring myself to omit it entirely from this series. It had been a close, rainy day in October. Oh, we're almost at October. Sorry, I got excited. Our blinds were half drawn, and Holmes lay curled upon the sofa, reading and rereading a letter which he had received by the morning post. For myself, my term of service in India had trained me to stand heat better than cold, and a thermometer of 90 was no hardship. But the paper was uninteresting. Parliament had risen, everybody was out of town, and I yearned for the glades of the New Forest or the shingle of Southsea. A depleted bank account had caused me to postpone my holiday, And as to my companion, neither the country nor the sea presented the slightest attraction to him. He loved to lie in the very center of 5 millions of people, with his filaments stretching out and running through them, responsive to every little rumor or suspicion of unsolved crime. Appreciation of nature found no place among his many gifts, and his only change was when he turned his mind from the evildoer of the town to track down his brother of the country. Finding that Holmes was too absorbed for conversation, I had tossed aside the barren paper, and leaning back in my chair, I fell into a brown study. Suddenly, my companion's voice broke in upon my thoughts. Hello, hello, how's it going, how's it going? You have missed nothing, kind of. Well, I mean, that sounds so, you've missed no plot. Yes, it's, Watson is down in the dumps. He's bored and stuff. So that's pretty much it. Yes, I hope you're well. So Sherlock, saying to Watson, "You are right, Watson," said he. "It does seem a very preposterous way of settling a dispute." "Most preposterous," I exclaimed, and then, suddenly realizing how he had echoed the inmost thought of my soul, I sat up in my chair and stared at him in blank amazement. "What is this, Holmes?" I cried. "This is beyond anything which I could have imagined." He laughed heartily at my perplexity. "You remember," said he, "that some little time ago, when I read you the passage in one of Poe's sketches, in which a close reasoner follows the unspoken thought of his companion, you were inclined to treat the matter as a mere tour de force of the author. On my remarking that I was constantly in the habit of doing the same thing, you expressed incredulity. Oh no, perhaps not with your tongue, my dear Watson, but certainly with your eyebrows. So when I saw you throw down your paper and enter upon a train of thought, I was very happy to have the opportunity of reading it off and eventually of breaking into it, as a proof that I had been in rapport with you." Coming from the person, also from the author. But I was still far from satisfied. "In the example which you read to me," said I, "the reasoner drew his conclusions from the actions of the man whom he observed. If I remember right, he stumbled over a heap of stones, looked up at the stars, and so on. But I have been seated quietly in my chair, and what clues can I have given you? You do yourself an injustice. The features are given to man as the means by which he shall express his emotions, and yours are faithful servants." "Do you mean to say that you read my train of thoughts from my features?" "Your features, and especially your eyes. Perhaps you cannot yourself recall how your reverie commenced?" "No, I cannot." "Then I will tell you. After throwing down your paper, which was the action which drew my attention to you, you sat for half a minute with a vacant expression. Then your eyes fixed themselves upon your newly framed picture of General Gordon, and I saw by the alteration in your face that a train of thought had been started. But it did not lead very far. Your eyes turned across to the unframed portrait of Henry Ward Beecher, which stands upon the top of your books. You then glanced up at the wall, and of course your meaning was obvious. You were thinking that if the portrait were framed, it would just cover that bare space and correspond with Gordon's picture over there." "You have followed me wonderfully," I exclaimed. So far I could hardly have gone astray. But now your thoughts went back to Beecher, and you looked hard across as if you were studying the character in his features. Then your eyes ceased to pucker, but you continued to look across, and your face was thoughtful. You were recalling the incidents of Beecher's career. I was well aware that you could not do this without thinking of the mission which he undertook on behalf of the North at the time of the Civil War, for I remember you expressing your passionate indignation at the way in which he was received by the more turbulent of our people. You felt so strongly about it that I knew you could not think of Beecher without thinking of that also. When a moment later I saw your eyes wander away from the picture, I suspected that your mind had now turned to the Civil War, and when I observed that your lips set, your eyes sparkled, and your hands clinched, I was positive that you were indeed thinking of the gallantry which was shown by both sides in that desperate struggle. But then again, your face grew sadder. You shook your head. You were dwelling upon the sadness and horror and useless waste of life. Your hand stole towards your own old wound, and a smile quivered on your lips, which showed me that the ridiculous side of this method of settling international questions had forced itself upon your mind. At this point, I agreed with you that it was preposterous, and was glad to find that all my deductions had been correct. Absolutely, said I, and now that you have explained it, I confess that I am as amazed as before. It was very superficial, my dear Watson, I assure you. I should not have intruded it upon your attention had you not shown some incredulity the other day. But the evening has brought a breeze with it. What do you say to a ramble through London? I was weary of our little sitting room and gladly acquiesced. For 3 hours we strolled about together, watching the ever-changing kaleidoscope of life as it ebbs and flows through Fleet Street and the Strand. His characteristic talk, with its keen observance of detail and subtle power of inference, held me amused and enthralled. It was 10 o'clock before we reached Baker Street again. A brougham was waiting at our door. Do I know if that's how it's pronounced? We'll leave it at that. A doctor's. General practitioner, I perceive, said Holmes. Not been long in practice, and has had a good deal to do. Come to consult us, I fancy. Lucky we came back. I was sufficiently conversant with Holmes's methods to be able to follow his reasoning, and to see that the nature and state of the various medical instruments in the wicker basket which hung in the lamplight inside the brougham had given him the data for his swift deduction. The light in our window above showed that this late visit was indeed intended for us. With some curiosity as to what could have sent a brother medico to us at such an hour, I followed Holmes into our sanctum. A pale, taper-faced man with sandy whiskers rose up from a chair by the fire as we entered. His age may not have been more than 3 or 4 and 30, but his haggard expression and unhealthy hue told of a life which has sapped his strength and robbed him of his youth. His manner was nervous and shy, like that of a sensitive gentleman, and the thin, white hand which he laid on the mantelpiece as he rose was that of an artist rather than of a surgeon. His dress was quiet and somber, a black frock coat, dark trousers, and a touch of color about his necktie. Good evening, Doctor, said Holmes cheerily. I am glad to see that you have only been waiting a very few minutes. You spoke to my coachman, then? No, it was the candle on the side table that told me. Pray resume your seat, and let me know how I can serve you. My name is Dr. Percy Trevelyan, said our visitor, and I live at 403 Brook Street. Are you not the author of a monograph upon obscure nervous lesions? I asked. His pale cheeks flushed with pleasure at hearing that his work was known to me. I so seldom hear of the work that I thought it was quite dead, said he. My publishers gave me a most discouraging account of its sale. You are yourself, I presume, a medical man? A retired army surgeon. My own hobby has always been nervous disease. I should wish to make it an absolute specialty, but, of course, a man must take what he can get at first. This, however, is beside the question, Mr. Sherlock Holmes, and I quite appreciate how valuable your time is. The fact is that a very singular train of events has occurred recently at my house in Brook Street, and tonight they came to such a head that I felt it was quite impossible for me to wait another hour before asking for your advice and assistance. Sherlock Holmes sat down and lit his pipe. You are very welcome to both, said he. Pray let me have a detailed account of what the circumstances are which have disturbed you. One or two of them are so trivial, said Dr. Trevelyan, that really I am almost ashamed to mention them. But the matter is so inexplicable, and the recent turn which it has taken is so elaborate, that I shall lay it all before you, and you shall judge what is essential and what is not. I am compelled to begin with to say something of my own college career. I am a London University man, you know, and I am sure that you will not think that I am unduly singing my own praises if I say that my student career was considered by my professors to be a very promising one. After I had graduated, I continued to devote myself to research, occupying a minor position in King's College Hospital, and I was fortunate enough to excite considerable interest by my research into the pathology of catalepsy, and finally to win the Bruce Pinkerton Prize and medal by the monograph on nervous lesions, to which your friend has just alluded. I should not go too far if I were to say that there was a general impression at that time that a distinguished career lay before me. But the one great stumbling block lay in my want of capital. As you will readily understand, a specialist who aims high is compelled to start in one of a dozen streets in the Cavendish Square quarter, all of which entail enormous rents and furnishing expenses. Besides this preliminary outlay, he must be prepared to keep himself for some years, and to hire a presentable carriage and horse. To do this was quite beyond my power, and I could only hope that by economy I might in 10 years' time save enough to enable me to put up my plate. Suddenly, however, an unexpected incident opened up quite a new prospect to me. This was a visit from a gentleman of the name of Blessington, who was a complete stranger to me. He came up to my room one morning and plunged into business in an instant. "You are the same Percy Trevelyan who has had so distinguished a career and won a great prize lately," said he. I bowed. "Answer me frankly," he continued, "for you will find it to your interest to do so. You have all the cleverness which makes a successful man. Have you the tact?" I feel like Blessington, the name, means something. I could not help smiling at the abruptness of the question. "I trust that I have my share," I said. "Any bad habits? Not drawn towards drink, eh?" "Really, sir," I cried. "Quite right, that's all right, but I was bound to ask. With all these qualities, why are you not in practice?" I shrugged my shoulders. Come, said he in his bustling way. "It's the old story. More in your brains than in your pocket, eh? What would you say if I were to start you in Brook Street?" I stared at him in astonishment. Hello, how's it going? I hope you're well. We're talking to a doctor, and he has apparently, he's a starting out doctor, so resident patient? No, I guess that doesn't make sense. But yeah, he recently started his practice and had a sort of, apparently an investor. So good. Excellent. I am also quite well. Yeah. Looking forward to the weekend, but it's been good recently. So, hello. Heart. Oh, wait, I gotta make a proper heart. Is it a proper? Can you see it? Proper. There. I think I can't tell. I stared at him in astonishment. "Oh, it's for my sake, not for yours," he cried. "I'll be perfectly frank with you, and if it suits you, it will suit me very well. I have a few thousands to invest, you see, and I think I'll sink them in you." "But why?" I gasped. "Well, it's just like any other speculation, and safer than most. What am I to do then?" "I'll tell you. I'll take the house, furnish it, pay the maids, and run the whole place. All you have to do is just to wear out your chair in the consulting room. I'll let you have pocket money and everything. Then you hand over to me 3/4 of what you earn, and you keep the other quarter for yourself." Am I a CFI yet? I am not a CFI. It is. It's gonna take me a while. I had a lesson recently, and it wasn't entirely horrible, but I'm still working on the right seat familiarization, and I still have to get through all of my lesson plans and then polish them after that, as well as get both of my writtens done. So yeah. My instructor is leaving for the airlines, or yeah, in I think like October-ish. So it'll be, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I'm even going to be done before then. So we'll see. You'll schedule with your normal CFI. That sounds good. It sounds good. Yes, that yeah. That's a fair plan of action. So what? I guess, is it by the end of this month, or I guess next month, because it's the end of this month. So nice. Yes, get that out of the way, and next month. Okay, sounds good. Next time we'll do it. So yes, we have an angel investor, a blessing in disguise. Oh, I wonder if that's gonna come into play. Haha, we'll keep that in mind. This was the strange proposal, Mr. Holmes, with which the man Blessington approached me. I won't weary you with the account of how we bargained and negotiated, It ended in my moving into the house next Lady Day. Lady Day. And starting in practice on very much the same conditions as he had suggested. He came himself to live with me in the character of a resident patient. His heart was weak, it appears, and he needed constant medical supervision. He turned the two best rooms of the first floor into a sitting room and bedroom for himself. He was a man of singular habits, shunning company, and very seldom going out. His life was irregular, but in one respect, he was regularity itself. Every evening, at the same hour, he walked into the consulting room, examined the books, put down 5 and 3 pence for every guinea that I had earned, and carried the rest off to the strong box in his own room. Get double I and maybe I can be your instrument instructor. Okay, sounds good. Well, that's gonna take even more time. I don't know. I mean, it would probably make sense to do the double I right after the CFI. I do want to get my multi at some point too, because I do have I have opportunity to do commercial work with that. So I don't know. We'll see. I want to say I feel like it'll potentially be easier, at least like the double I will be easier after the CFI, just because then I'll be already used to the actual teaching part of it. But I've thought things like that before. So we'll see. We'll see. Are you looking into it at all? Are you gonna be starting soon? It's fun. How much instrument can you actually do in your airplane? I'd be curious. I may say with confidence that he never had occasion to regret his speculation. From the first it was a success. A few good cases and the reputation which I had won in the hospital brought me rapidly to the front, and during the last few years I have made him a rich man. So much, Mr. Holmes, for my past history and my relations with Mr. Blessington. It only remains for me now to tell you what has occurred to bring me here tonight. You have no plans at the moment? Okay, sounds good. So it's all on me. In your plane, you have standard 6-pack, and that's it basically. So VOR, nav at all, or straight up VFR? It would have to be a rental. Oh, okay, sounds good. Interesting. So you haven't upgraded your avionics to that point at all? Maybe by the point I get double I, maybe you'll have gotten your avionics, and then it'll be good. We'll see. That's definitely down the road, but it never ends. It never ends. Have you gotten to fly recently? I hope so. Some weeks ago, Mr. Blessington came down to me in, as it seemed to me, a state of considerable agitation. He spoke of some burglary which, he said, had been committed in the West End, and he appeared, I remember, to be quite unnecessarily excited about it, declaring that a day should not pass before we should add stronger bolts to our windows and doors. For a week he continued to be in a peculiar state of restlessness, peering continually out of the windows, and ceasing to take the short walk which had usually been the prelude to his dinner. From his manner, it struck me that he was in mortal dread of something or somebody, but when I questioned him upon the point, he became so offensive that I was compelled to drop the subject. Gradually, as time passed, his fears appeared to die away, and he had renewed his former habits, when a fresh event reduced him to the pitiable state of prostration in which he now lies. You'll never be able to talk your partner into that sort of an upgrade. Okay, absolutely fair. Absolutely fair. So no, because it is fun to fly other aircraft as well and find out their quirks. So it'll be some time, but that sounds like a fun time. What happened was this. 2 days ago, I received the letter which I now read to you. Neither address nor date is attached to it. A Russian nobleman who is now resident in England, it runs, would be glad to avail himself of the professional assistance of Dr. Percy Trevelyan. He has been for some years a victim to cataleptic attacks, on which, as is well known, Dr. Trevelyan is an authority. He proposes to call at about 6:15 tomorrow evening, if Dr. Trevelyan will make it convenient to be home. I don't, like, for some reason that, like, came off really strange because of how often it said, Dr. Trevelyan. This letter interested. Interest. Is that one of those past where it's interest me deeply? Where, like, past tense was that back then instead? This letter interests me deeply because the chief difficulty in the study of catalepsy is the rareness of the disease. You may believe, then, that I was in my consulting room when, at the appointed hour, the page showed in the patient. He was an elderly man, thin, demure, and commonplace, by no means the conception one forms of a Russian nobleman. I was much more struck by the appearance of his companion. This was a tall young man, surprisingly handsome, with a dark, fierce face, and the limbs and chest of a Hercules. He had his hand under the other's arm as they entered, and helped him to a chair, with a tenderness which one would hardly have expected from his appearance. You will excuse my coming in, doctor, said he to me, speaking English with a slight lisp. This is my father, and his health is a matter of the most overwhelming importance to me. I was touched by this filial anxiety. You would, perhaps, care to remain during the consultation, said I. Not for the world, he cried with a gesture of horror. It is more painful to me than I can express. If I were to see my father in one of these dreadful seizures, I am convinced that I should never survive it. My own nervous system is an exceptionally sensitive one. With your permission, I will remain in the waiting room while you go into my father's case. Now that I have been flying more with my aviation career... have my aviation career aspirations changed? I'm not sure they were ever really settled enough for them to have changed. But again, like, yeah, I've flown the Baron a few times. Yeah. With my instructor and then his business partner. And that's pretty chill. So, and again, once my instructor is off at the airlines, that might be an opportunity for me. So, like, I was kind of putting off the multi-engine stuff until a while, but now I'm like, maybe I should. So, yeah, so that might be a thing. But then I had the ramp check this weekend this past weekish, and it was for the air tours, and the FAA guy came back up to me, and was pointing out a medical plane or whatever, and he's like, yeah, that would be a good job for you or whatever, or the medevac plane. And I was like, yeah, really? And I don't know, that was one of my first things that I thought maybe when I first started talking to number one instructor, just because I wasn't sure I wanted to get into airlines, and he suggested that. So I don't know. It is. I'm kind of just taking it as it comes right now. But yeah, like, again, still potentially maybe airlines, now that I know that number one instructor likes it, even though he thought he was not going to. And I feel like we see eye to eye on a lot of things. And my instructor right now has said that it would probably be a good fit for me. So I don't know. Until that point, yeah, still just taking it as it is. I don't know. That's really all it is. I'm just gonna keep on going through each of the stages, and yeah. Sometimes you go on ADSB Exchange and click on random planes and see how many smaller operations there are. I didn't even think of that. Usually I like to try and find like singular owners, like the names of people, and then I kind of creep a little bit on that. But yeah, now that you say that, that would actually be a better use of my time. So thank you for that. Because I've definitely seen like businesses and stuff. That is a much better use of my time. I'm gonna start doing that instead. Thank you for that. Yeah, we'll see. It is, and a lot of it is just it's who you know. And I'm so great at networking. I'm not. So yeah, it's we'll see. We'll see. I enjoy doing the air tours, so but I don't know how much that is. So a lot of commercial operations out there, right? Yeah, but another one of the things is like I want to make sure I can trust, I can feel good about the operation because I know that there are those out there that don't give a damn and have shady practices. So I do. I'm nervous about that stuff as well. So I don't know. It is. There's a lot to go into it. Though it gets misleading sometimes. Lots of planes are just flown. Right, owned by a business but flown personally. Yeah, that's fair as well. But still, it would definitely give me a different insight. So yeah, I don't know. Just taking it one day at a time. Okay. To this, of course, I assented. Mm. So the kid is going, or the young man, the son is going to sit outside during his father's consultation. To this, of course, I assented, and the young man withdrew. The patient and I then plunged into a discussion of his case, of which I took exhaustive notes. He was not remarkable for intelligence, and his answers were frequently obscure, which I attributed to his limited acquaintance with our language. Suddenly, however, as I sat writing, he ceased to give any answer at all to my inquiries, and on my turning towards him, I was shocked to see that he was sitting bolt upright in his chair, staring at me with a perfectly blank and rigid face. He was again in the grip of his mysterious malady. My first feeling, as I have just said, was one of pity and horror. My second, I fear, was rather one of professional satisfaction. I made notes of my patient's pulse and temperature, tested the rigidity of his muscles, and examined his reflexes. There was nothing markedly abnormal in any of these conditions, which harmonized with my former experiences. I had obtained good results in such cases by the inhalation of nitrite of amyl, and the present seemed an admirable opportunity of testing its virtues. The bottle was downstairs in my laboratory, so leaving my patient seated in his chair, I ran down to get it. There was some little delay in finding it, 5 minutes, let us say, and then I returned. Imagine my amazement to find the room empty and the patient gone. Of course, my first act was to run into the waiting room. The son had gone also. The hall door had been closed, but not shut. My page who admits patients is a new boy and by no means quick. He waits downstairs and runs up to show patients out when I ring the consulting room bell. He had heard nothing, and the affair remained a complete mystery. Mr. Blessington came in from his walk shortly afterwards, but I did not say anything to him upon the subject, for, to tell the truth, I have got in the way of late of holding as little communication with him as possible. A FedEx feeder might be a good option. You talk to one company at AirVenture. So how does that work, and what does that mean? Like, how does that route like start? It's like single engine, multi-engine, like what? Because I've definitely like heard of that, but never actually gone into it because, yeah, I had heard about it more at the time when I wasn't thinking airlines, and then since then, it's just kind of been, yeah, again, just taking it a step at a time. But okay, that definitely might. Okay. Well, I never thought that I should see anything more of the Russian and his son, so you can imagine my amazement when, at the very same hour this evening, they both came marching into my consulting room, just as they had done before. I feel that I owe you a great many apologies for my abrupt departure yesterday, doctor, said my patient. I confess that I was very much surprised at it, said I. Well, the fact is, he remarked, that when I recover from these attacks, my mind is always very clouded as to all that has gone before. I woke up in a strange room, as it seemed to me, and made my way out into the street in a sort of dazed way when you were absent. And I, said the son, seeing my father pass the door of the waiting room, naturally thought that the consultation had come to an end. It was not until we had reached home that I began to realize the true state of affairs. Well, said I, laughing, there is no harm done, except that you puzzled me terribly. So if you, sir, would kindly step into the waiting room, I shall be happy to continue our consultation, which was brought to so abrupt an ending. For half an hour or so, I discussed that old gentleman's symptoms with him, and then, having prescribed for him, I saw him go off upon the arm of his son. I have told you that Mr. Blessington generally chose this hour of the day for his exercise. He came in shortly afterwards and passed upstairs. An instant later, I heard him running down, and he burst into my consulting room like a man who is mad with panic. "Who has been in my room?" he cried. "No one," said I. "It's a lie," he yelled. "Come up and look." I passed over the grossness of his language, as he seemed half out of his mind with fear. When I went upstairs with him, he pointed to several footprints upon the light carpet. "Do you mean to say those are mine?" he cried. They were certainly very much larger than any which he could have made, and were evidently quite fresh. It rained hard this afternoon, as you know, and my patients were the only people who called. It must have been the case, then, that the man in the waiting room had, for some unknown reason, while I was busy with the other, ascended to the room of my resident patient. Nothing has been touched or taken, but there were the footprints to prove that the intrusion was an undoubted fact. They fly 208s, okay, and only local routes. Basically, you fly a FedEx plane, but work for a contracted company. Okay, now I have to look up a 208 because I totally know what planes are. It's so terrible. I need a plane spotter's guide. 208. Oops. Oh, ooh, that's kind of cool. Oh, so is it somewhat similar to a 206 then? Except, yeah, yes? It's got the little belly on it. I like the little belly on it. That'd be kind of cool. A lot bigger? Oh, okay. It looks kind of small. Hang on. I'll have to see an actual person in it. I need to see oh, there it is. Okay. Oh, okay. Yeah. All right. It's definitely big. Okay, got you. It does. If you just Google 208 plane and you look at the images, it looks kind of small. Some also fly sky couriers. That sounds cool. Hang on. Ooh. Oh, so there's another multi-engine. Okay, okay. Sounds good. On floats, they look huge. I did see one on floats. But it needs to be next to a person. I could just, oops, floats. Oh, that looks cozy. Oh, that's so cool. Okay, okay, okay. They brought a sky courier to Air Adventure, but you missed it. Oh no! One for next year then. Okay, yeah, no, that sounds like it'd be cool. Feeder networks in pretty much every state. Okay, I will write that down, and I'll talk to my instructor about it, because he might have like an idea whether it would actually be something, because you do like is it like a right seat thing right away? Because that is one of the things that he said that I would be good with at the airlines, is that you have somebody in the left seat that's more senior and can help you out and teach you stuff and get that experience in. So yeah, that'd be, we'll see. There's so many different opportunities. It's just getting into them. So we shall see. Thank you. I appreciate that. Doubted the fact. Okay, undoubted fact. Mr. Blessington seemed more excited over the matter than I should have thought possible, though of course it was enough to disturb anybody's peace of mind. He actually sat crying in an armchair, and I could hardly get him to speak coherently. It was his suggestion that I should come round to you, and of course I at once saw the propriety of it, for certainly the incident is a very singular one, though he appears to completely overrate its importance. If you would only come back with me in my brougham, I should probably figure out if that's actually how you pronounce it, you would at least be able to soothe him, although I can hardly hope that you will be able to explain this remarkable occurrence. The one company you talked to required 1,200 hours, but they were working on a program, for second in command with lower hours. But is that, well, I guess, if you're being paid for it, I guess it doesn't matter if you're getting the hours. But also, because isn't that a thing, like some second in command positions don't actually count for hours? So, yeah. I would be curious. And I've heard people getting burned with that. So, I don't, well, and it could just be like not a side thing, but like also doing the CFIing, getting those more hours. So it is. There's totally different like paths and journeys and just whatever ends up working out in the end. So yeah, we'll see. Sherlock Holmes had listened to this long narrative with an intentness which showed me that his interest was keenly aroused. His face was as impassive as ever, but his lids had drooped more heavily over his eyes, and his smoke had curled up more thickly from his pipe to emphasize each curious episode in the doctor's tale. As our visitor concluded, Holmes sprang up without a word, handed me my hat, picked his own from the table, and followed Dr. Trevelyan to the door. Within a quarter of an hour, we had been dropped at the door of the physician's residence in Brook Street, one of those somber, flat-faced houses which one associates with a West End practice. A small page admitted us, and we began at once to ascend the broad, well-carpeted stair. But a singular interruption brought us to a standstill. The light at the top was suddenly whisked out, and from the darkness came a reedy, quivering voice. "I have a pistol," it cried. "I give you my word that I'll fire if you come any nearer." "This really grows outrageous, Mr. Blessington," cried Dr. Trevelyan. "Oh, then it is you, Doctor," said the voice, with a great heave of relief. "But those other gentlemen, are they what they pretend to be?" We were conscious of a long scrutiny out of the darkness. Yes, it's all right," said the voice at last. "You can come up, and I am sorry if my precautions have annoyed you." There's wood as they're basically using it as a training program to get pilots, so it would count for hours. Okay, interesting. And would that be in the multi one, or because the one was a single engine, right? Because if it's the multi one, then I would have to get that multi engine still. Which it I I just will. I just will have to sooner than I kind of thought I would, but we'll see. That company only has 208s, you believe? Okay. Which is which is the single engine. Okay. That would be interesting. I will. I'll definitely look into it. I would definitely be curious. Okay. Thank you. I do. I appreciate it. Um, he relit the stair gas. He relit the stair gas as he spoke, and we saw before us a singular-looking man, whose appearance, as well as his voice, testified to his jangled nerves. He was very fat, but had apparently at some time been much fatter, so that the skin hung about his face in loose pouches, like the cheeks of a bloodhound. He was of a sickly color, and his thin, sandy hair seemed to bristle up with the intensity of his emotion. In his hand he held a pistol, but he thrust it into his pocket as we advanced. "Good evening, Mr. Holmes," said he. "I am sure I am very much obliged to you for coming round. No one ever needed your advice more than I do. I suppose that Dr. Trevelyan has told you of this most unwarrantable intrusion into my rooms. Quite so, said Holmes. Who are these two men, Mr. Blessington, and why do they wish to molest you? Well, well, said the resident patient in a nervous fashion. Of course, it is hard to say that. You can hardly expect me to answer that, Mr. Holmes. Do you mean that you don't know? Come in here, if you please. Just have the kindness to step in here. He led the way into his bedroom, which was large and comfortably furnished. There might be a different company in my area with different offerings. Right. Yeah, I guess that would be yeah, something to look for. Because I guess, like, region is dependent. Oops. There. That should remind me to check. There. Awesome. I will at some point look into. There's so many things that I'm supposed to look into, and I keep forgetting to look into them. And I have them like up on my laptop still, like all these tabs open that I need to look into, and I mean to, but that would be something that maybe potentially would be more now. So yeah, we'll see. Comfortably furnished. You see that, said he, pointing to a big black box at the end of his bed. I have never been a very rich man, Mr. Holmes. Never made but one investment in my life, as Dr. Trevelyan would tell you. But I don't believe in bankers. I would never trust a banker, Mr. Holmes. Between ourselves, what little I have is in that box, so you can understand what it means to me when unknown people force themselves into my rooms. Holmes looked at Blessington in his questioning way and shook his head. I cannot possibly advise you if you try to deceive me, said he. But I have told you everything. Holmes turned on his heel with a gesture of disgust. Good night, Dr. Trevelyan, said he. And no advice for me, cried Blessington in a breaking voice. My advice to you, sir, is to speak the truth. A minute later, we were in the street and walking for home. We had crossed Oxford Street and were halfway down Harley Street before I could get a word from my companion. Sorry to bring you out on such a fool's errand, Watson, he said at last. It is an interesting case, too, at the bottom of it. I can make little of it, I confessed. Well, it is quite evident that there are two men, more perhaps, but at least two, who are determined for some reason to get at this fellow Blessington. I have no doubt in my mind that both on the first and on the second occasion that young man penetrated to Blessington's room, while his confederate, by an ingenious device, kept the doctor from interfering. And the catalepsy? A fraudulent imitation, Watson, though I should hardly dare to hint as much to our specialist. It is a very easy complaint to imitate. I have done it myself. And then? By the purest chance, Blessington was out on each occasion. Their reason for choosing so unusual an hour for a consultation was obviously to ensure that there would be no other patient in the waiting room. It just happened, however, that this hour coincided with Blessington's constitutional, which seems to show that they were not very well acquainted with his daily routine. Of course, if they had been merely after plunder, they would at least have made some attempt to search for it. Besides, I can read in a man's eye when it is his own skin that he is frightened for. It is inconceivable that this fellow could have made two such vindictive enemies as these appear to be without knowing of it. I hold it, therefore, to be certain that he does know who these men are, and that for reasons of his own he suppresses it. It is just possible that tomorrow may find him in a more communicative mood. Is there not one alternative, I suggested? Grotesquely improbable, no doubt, but still just conceivable. Might the whole story of the cataleptic Russian and his son be a concoction of Dr. Trevelyan's, who has, for his own purposes, Been in Blessington's rooms? I saw in the gaslight that Holmes wore an amused smile at this brilliant departure of mine. My dear fellow, said he, it was one of the first solutions which occurred to me, but I was soon able to corroborate the doctor's tale. This young man has left prints upon the stair carpet which made it quite superfluous for me to ask to see those which he had made in the room. When I tell you that his shoes were square-toed instead of being pointed like Blessington's, and were quite an inch and a third longer than the doctor's, you will acknowledge that there can be no doubt as to his individuality. But we may sleep on it now, for I shall be surprised if we do not hear something further from Brook Street in the morning. Sherlock Holmes's prophecy was soon fulfilled, and in a dramatic fashion. At 7:30 next morning, in the first glimmer of daylight, I found him standing by my bedside in his dressing gown. There's a brougham waiting for us, Watson, said he. What's the matter, then? The Brook Street business. Any fresh news? Tragic, but ambiguous, said he, pulling up the blind. Look at this, a sheet from a notebook with, for God's sake, come at once, P.T., scrawled upon it in pencil. Our friend, the doctor, was hard put to it when he wrote this. Come along, my dear fellow, for it's an urgent call. In a quarter of an hour or so, we were back at the physician's house. He came running out to meet us with a face of horror. Oh, such a business, he cried, with his hands to his temples. What then? Blessington has committed suicide. Holmes whistled. Yes, he hanged himself during the night. We had entered, and the doctor had preceded us into what was evidently his waiting room. I really hardly know what I am doing, he cried. The police are already upstairs. It has shaken me most dreadfully. When did you find it out? He has a cup of tea taken into him early every morning. When the maid entered, about 7, there the unfortunate fellow was hanging in the middle of the room. He had tied his cord to the hook on which the heavy lamp used to hang, and he had jumped off from the top of the very box that he showed us yesterday. Holmes stood for a moment in deep thought. With your permission, said he at last, I should like to go upstairs and look into the matter. We both ascended, followed by the doctor. It was a dreadful sight which met us as we entered the bedroom door. I have spoken of the impression of flabbiness which this man Blessington conveyed. As he dangled from the hook, it was exaggerated and intensified until he was scarce human in his appearance. The neck was drawn out like a plucked chicken's, making the rest of him seem the more obese and unnatural by the contrast. He was clad only in his long nightdress, and his swollen ankles and ungainly feet protruded starkly from beneath it. Beside him stood a smart-looking police inspector, who was taking notes in a pocketbook. Ah, Mr. Holmes, said he heartily, as my friend entered, I am delighted to see you. Good morning, Lanner, answered Holmes. You won't think me an intruder, I am sure. Have you heard of the events which led up to this affair? Yes, I heard something of them. Have you formed any opinion? As far as I can see, the man has been driven out of his senses by fright. The bed has been well slept in, you see. There's his impression deep enough. It's about 5 in the morning, you know, that suicides are most common. That would be about his time for hanging himself. It seems to have been a very deliberate affair. I should say that he has been dead about 3 hours, judging by the rigidity of the muscles, said I. Noticed anything peculiar about the room? Asked Holmes. Found a screwdriver and some screws on the wash-hand stand. Seems to have smoked heavily during the night, too. Here are 4 cigar ends that I picked out of the fireplace. Said Holmes. Have you got his cigar holder? No, I have seen none. His cigar case, then? Yes, it was in his coat pocket. Holmes opened it and smelled the single cigar which it contained. Oh, this is an Havana, and these others are cigars of the peculiar sort which are imported by the Dutch from their East Indian colonies. They are usually wrapped in straw, you know, and are thinner for their length than any other brand. He picked up the 4 ends and examined them with his pocket lens. 2 of these have been smoked from a holder, and 2 without, said he. 2 have been cut by a not very sharp knife, and 2 have had the ends bitten off by a set of excellent teeth. This is no suicide, Mr. Lanner. It is a very deeply planned and cold-blooded murder. Impossible, cried the inspector. And why? Why should anyone murder a man in so clumsy a fashion as by hanging him? That is what we have to find out. How could they get in? Through the front door. It was barred in the morning. Then it was barred after them. How do you know? I saw their traces. Excuse me a moment, and I may be able to give you some further information about it. He went over to the door, and turning the lock, he examined it in his methodical way. Then he took out the key, which was on the inside, and inspected that also. The bed, the carpet, the chairs, the mantelpiece, the dead body, and the rope were each in turn examined, until at last he professed himself satisfied, and with my aid and that of the inspector, cut down the wretched object and lay it reverently under a sheet. Have I ever considered getting a degree in aviation? I haven't. Honestly, I never liked school. So, like, having to go back again, I wouldn't be, like, that much inclined to, I don't think. But, I don't know, I guess that's something to potentially consider as well. I do, I kind of like the way that I'm doing it. I like the Part 61 stuff. I don't know what, leg up or anything a degree would give. But if you have insight into that, definitely let me know. But yeah, no, I've just been going the 61 route, get the ratings, get the certificates, and just kind of, yeah, send it. I should have, like, again, if I knew now or knew then what I know now, that I like aviation and stuff, I definitely would have gone into that instead of anything else, probably. But yeah, tis what tis. So yeah, I could definitely look into that, but at the moment, probably not. It's an interesting thought, though. How about this rope? He asked. It is cut off this, said Dr. Trevelyan, drawing a large coil from under the bed. He was morbidly nervous of fire, and always kept this beside him, so that he might escape by the window in case the stairs were burning. That must have saved them trouble, said Holmes thoughtfully. Yes, the actual facts are very plain, and I shall be surprised if by the afternoon I cannot give you the reasons for them as well. I will take this photograph of Blessington, which I see upon the mantelpiece, as it may help me in my inquiries. But you have told us nothing, cried the doctor. Oh, there can be no doubt as to the sequence of events, said Holmes. There were 3 of them in it. The young man, the old man, and a third, to whose identity I have no clue. The first 2, I need hardly remark, are the same who masqueraded as the Russian count and his son, so we can give a very full description of them. They were admitted by a Confederate inside the house. If I might offer you a word of advice, Inspector, it would be to arrest the page, who, as I understand, has only recently come into your service, Doctor. The young imp cannot be found, said Dr. Trevelyan. The maid and the cook have just been searching for him. Holmes shrugged his shoulders. You hear that? Yeah, hated school growing up, but it's not as bad when you get to study what you want. Absolutely fair, but I don't know. I think for me, it's not just studying what I want, it's also studying how I want. So the whole general idea of like classroom, school, whatever, just puts me off so much. Like, I'm not even sure I want to like ground school, like teach classroom sort of stuff. So I don't know, maybe. Ugh. I do. I have such a like ugh to it, but I don't know. It could. You know what? There's been so many things with the aviation where like aviation in general is something that I never thought that I would do. So never say never, I guess. I'll maybe look into that. that was much less of an interest to me, but again, I might be surprised. So he has played a not he has played a not unimportant part in this drama, said he, the three men having ascended the stairs, which they did on tiptoe, the elder man first, the younger man second, and the unknown man in the rear. My dear Holmes, I ejaculated. Oh, there could be no question as to the superimposing of the footmarks. I had the advantage of learning which was which last night. They ascended then to Mr. Blessington's room, the door of which they found to be locked. With the help of a wire, however, they forced round the key. Even without the lens, you will perceive by the scratches on this ward, where the pressure was applied. On entering the room, their first proceeding must have been to gag Mr. Blessington. He may have been asleep, or he may have been so paralyzed with terror as to have been unable to cry out. These walls are thick, and it is conceivable that his shriek, if he had time to utter one, was unheard. Having secured him, it is evident to me that a consultation of some sort was held. Probably it was something in the nature of a judicial proceeding. It must have lasted for some time, for it was then that these cigars were smoked. The older man sat in that wicker chair. It was he who used the cigar holder. The younger man sat over yonder. He knocked his ash off against the chest of drawers. The third fellow paced up and down. Blessington, I think, sat upright in the bed, but of that I cannot be absolutely certain. Well, it ended by their taking Blessington and hanging him. The matter was so prearranged that it is my belief that they brought with them some sort of block or pulley which might serve as a gallows. That screwdriver and those screws were, as I conceive, for fixing it up. Seeing the hook, however, they naturally saved themselves the trouble. Having finished their work, they made off, and the door was barred behind them by their confederate. We had all listened with the deepest interest to this sketch of the night's doings, which Holmes had deduced from signs so subtle and minute that, even when he had pointed them out to us, we could scarcely follow him in his reasoning. The inspector hurried away on the instant to make inquiries about the page, while Holmes and I returned to Baker Street for breakfast. "I'll be back by 3, said he, when we had finished our meal. Both the inspector and the doctor will meet me here at that hour, and I hope by that time to have cleared up any little obscurity which the case may still present." I'm feeling like Blessington deserved it, but we'll see. Our visitors arrived at the appointed time, but it was 3:45 before my friend put in an appearance. From his expression as he entered, however, I could see that all had gone well with him. "Any news, Inspector?" "We have got the boy, sir." "Excellent, and I have got the men." "You have got them?" we cried all three. "Well, at least I have got their identity. This so-called Blessington is, as I expected, well known at headquarters, and so are his assailants. Their names are Biddle, Hayward, and Moffat." It's funny because I'm trying to think. Was Moffat? The British TV, Moffat's one of the big players in that. Producer? Director? Writer? So that's fun. "The Worthington Bank gang," cried the inspector. "Precisely," said Holmes. "Then Blessington must have been Sutton." "Exactly," said Holmes. "Why, that makes it as clear as crystal," said the inspector. But Trevelyan and I looked at each other in bewilderment. "You must surely remember the great Worthington Bank business," said Holmes. 5 men were in it, these 4 and a 5th called Cartwright. Tobin the caretaker was murdered, and the thieves got away with £7,000. This was in 1875. They were all 5 arrested, but the evidence against them was by no means conclusive. This Blessington, or Sutton, who was the worst of the gang, turned informer. On his evidence, Cartwright was hanged, and the other 3 got 15 years apiece. When they got out the other day, which was some years before their full term, they set themselves, as you perceive, to hunt down the traitor and to avenge the death of their comrade upon him. Twice they tried to get at him, and failed. A 3rd time, you see, it came off. Is there anything further which I can explain, Dr. Trevelyan? "I think you have made it all I think you have made it all remarkably clear, said the doctor. No doubt the day on which he was perturbed was the day when he had seen of their release in the newspapers. Quite so. His talk about a burglary was the merest blind. But why could he not tell you this? Well, my dear sir, knowing the vindictive character of his old associates, he was trying to hide his own identity from everybody as long as he could. His secret was a shameful one, and he could not bring himself to divulge it. However, wretch as he was still living under the shield of British law, and I have no doubt, Inspector, that you will see that, though that shield may fail to guard, the sword of justice is still there to avenge. Such were the singular circumstances in connection with the resident patient and the Brook Street doctor. From that night, nothing has been seen of the 3 murderers by the police, and it is surmised at Scotland Yard that they were among the passengers of the ill-fated steamer Nora Crana, which was lost some years ago with all hands upon the Portuguese coast, some leagues to the north of Oporto. The proceedings against the page broke down for want of evidence, and the Brook Street mystery, as it was called, has never until now been fully dealt with in any public print. So everybody got justice, apparently. So I had a bit of a, it was doing me a concern, because for a moment I thought the page was one of the people in the thing, one in the gang, and I was like, okay, so how did Blessington or Sutton not see that he was there? But the page was just, I mean, as a normal person, as a normal villain would do, hired out. So yeah. I did this one was how does one say? Chill's not the right word, but it was like a little bit more simmery. And then yeah, it just it never really had like a climactic punch at all. Like it kind of did, I guess. But it was like the guy kind of had it coming. You kind of have that what's the word? That idea, because Holmes would have helped him, but he wasn't being honest, so he left. And then it's like, oh, it's the morning and something came, letter came, have to go. And it's like, yeah, something happened, and then you get to it and it's like, oh, he dead. All right, let's figure it out now. Just kind of gets down to business. So yeah, it wasn't a really punchy story. It was, and you know what? Okay, hang on, going back. From the beginning, when Watson was talking about, he was bored. Peculiar is my friend, struck by the difficulty which he's experienced, performed some tour de force, demonstrated the value of his peculiar methods. The facts themselves have often been so slight, so commonplace, could not feel justified in laying them before the public. Frequently happen when he has been concerned in some research where the facts have been of the most remarkable and dramatic character, but where the share which he has himself taken in determining their causes has been less pronounced. Small matter which I have chronicled. May serve as examples of the Scylla and Charybdis, which forever threatening the historian. Haha, reference. It may be that, and I also want to, okay, because that is Greek, right? The Scylla and Charybdis is the Greek, and tying to the next story, potentially, which are forever threatening the historian. It may be that in the business of which I am, whole train of circumstance, business of which I am now about to write, the part which my friend played is not sufficiently accentuated, and yet the whole train of circumstances is so remarkable that I cannot bring myself to omit it entirely from the series. See, that's what I like. That's what I like so much about these stories, is that they are so differently written. And again, it's not a big punchy one like some of the other ones, but he puts it in there anyway, which makes it that much more realistic, because It does. It makes it less fictitious, especially with modern stuff, which I'll try not to get too deeply into, where everything's got to be like a hit sort of a thing, and a hit over here, and a hit over here, and a that's yeah, that really good at explaining things. But like it is that there's too much. There's too much where it becomes as much as it's fiction, there also has to be, oh god, what is it called? The suspension of disbelief. And when you have too much punchy stuff, you do end up kind of coming out of that like immersion, because it's almost like having sugar all the time. You get used to it and you need more in order for it to actually have any effect. So yeah, it just, having too much of it brings you out of that immersion, and I don't know. I just I love it. I love the variety of them. Yeah. Anyway, okay. Sorry. Movie to add to the recommended watch list if you haven't mentioned it before. Nightmare Before Christmas. I've totally seen the Nightmare Before Christmas. I'm trying to think, because I do. I love Spooptober, so I will totally. Okay. I have a question then. Do you consider it a Halloween movie or a Christmas movie, or a both? I'm trying to think. It has. I think it's been a while since I've watched it, because I do. I try every year. I've been trying every year to watch, like horror and Halloween movies that I haven't seen before. But yeah, I'll definitely add it to the list. They just remastered it on 4K, so you picked it up both. Okay. So you watch it at least twice a year. Okay. A must watch. Ah. So two of my Halloween songs that I had in my playlist is the Korn version of Kidnap the Sandy Claus, and the Marilyn Manson version of This Is Halloween. if that counts at all. So yeah, I will. I am. I'm so freaking looking. I love the Spoopins. I love the Spooptober. I'm yeah, so freaking excited. And that's the thing. So we're doing this evening, and then we have two more stories in this section. And then, so whenever that happens, and then I'll probably leave off for now, and because of course in October we have to read the Something Spoopy. So, and I was thinking of doing, Frankenstein, but I think that might be maybe a bit much. I don't know, because we read Phantasmagoriana last year, so maybe over the month it could work out. I don't know. Coraline, Corpse Bride, 9 are all good choices too. Okay, sounds good. I will. So, oh god, sorry. And maybe that would be good to get out of my because it's been mostly like the straight up horror stuff, like and like the classic stuff. So like I watched The Birds last year. I'm trying to think of any of the other ones that I watched, and I don't know, it wasn't entirely my thing. What I like in like the horror stuff is like the twisty, mind-bending sort of stuff. So I, like at one point I watched Donnie Darko, and that was super interesting. And then yeah, some other ones that I've watched have been so I watched like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, And it was just, I don't know, it felt like it relied too much. And again, this is just my kind of own personal thing, but relied too much on like the shock factor, the gore, whatever. Um, so it is. It's like, so that, I'm trying to think of how to explain it. That innate reaction, that more physical primal reaction, um, that you kind of can't control. Like you see blood, you see this, you see that, whatever. It's that primal reaction of like resistance and fear. If you can convince me without that stuff that I should be afraid, I don't know. I think that stuff is a lot better. Again, kind of my own thing, but yeah, puzzly stuff. Ooh, Hush. I enjoyed Hush as well. That was, I thought that was really well done. It was a really interesting premise, like where it's the deaf woman gets kind of attacked in her home and how that all comes together. And yeah, so I will, coming back to that, yeah, so I've been like watching those sorts of things, watching all of those. I'm not sure I've ever fully finished Coraline, so that would be good for me to do. That one, I believe I've seen Corpse Bride, but that's definitely been a while. 9. Awesome. Yay, because yeah, that sounds fun. Because sometimes it gets a little bit much watching all the really super dark stuff. So, um, Donnie Darko is good. Yes, absolutely. Psychological thrillers are good. Yes, that's exactly what I like. I do. I love the twisty stuff. I don't know what it is. I just like putting my brain through a blender. It's a lot. It's that's fun. I enjoy that stuff. So you try to keep a good variety in your movie collection. Yeah, I definitely should. I should probably like, yeah, kind of add more of the fun stuff in there as well. So yeah, that'll be good. I'm so excited. I can't be getting excited though. I shouldn't be getting excited because I always get upset about people getting too excited for Christmas too early. So I will get excited for fall month, for autumn month, and then I will get excited about it, Spooktober. But yes, I am. I will. I have those in there, and that will be those will be those. Ooh, yeah, that sounds okay. Sorry, now I'm making plans. I am getting way too excited. All right, so that was I don't even remember, the resident patient. That was the resident patient. Now we have the Greek interpreter. Will we see connections, the Scylla and Charybdis, and then the Greek interpreter? Aha. Well, I don't know. If I have any suggestions, you're open to them? Oh gosh. Okay. So again, I enjoyed Hush. That one was interesting. Oh, shoot, there was one where I never actually watched, but the premise seems so interesting. But if you watch the trailer, it basically gives it away. And I can't remember which one it was. Other than that, I'm trying to think. There was one like the triangle or something, maybe it was. And that one was rather interesting. Gosh, at the moment I'm not sure. I watched The Cabin at one. Nope, Cabin in the Woods, and that was interesting in a variety of ways. Um, but yeah, so like I would watch like Halloween and Friday the 13th and stuff like that, and it I don't know. I feel like one of the things, even, oh God, The Shining and Psycho, I feel horrible because all of the tropes have been overdone now. So, like, I'm expecting, like, you're expecting those things. You've seen these things, they've been done over and over before. So, I feel like my experience of those was less than it would have been if I had watched them when they came out. But yeah, so I don't know what it is. It seemed like the stories weren't as tight as I would have liked, but then again, like it was different style at the time, and it could just generally be a taste. Cabin in the Woods you've seen, okay, excellent, and a lot of the classics, yes. Um, I am. I'm trying to think. Vincent Price is excellent. Oh, if you want a fun one, is it Comedy of Terrors or Bride of Frankenstein? Whatever one with, oh God, the guy from Willy Wonka, Glenn, no, yeah, the guy from Willy Wonka. That one was amusing, I think. Oh, I watched one that I was so disappointed in, and I didn't even finish it just because it was a Dracula one with all these good people. Keanu Reeves, Winona Ryder, Gary Oldman. Freaking love Gary Oldman. Was it like Brahms Dracula? Maybe. But yeah, it was just it was theater people. Gene Wilder. I knew it was a G. Yes, Gene Wilder. I'm sorry. Yeah, that one was fun. I would. I'd have to go back through. I have like an entire list that I've been working through. But at some point, okay, at some point I want to watch the un can you call it the Unbreakable series, where it's Unbreakable, Split, and then Glass. Cause I watched Split. I enjoyed Split until the end. Won't give anything away. But it did. The ending was just like so out of what's the word? Like out of the blue. Um, but I would be curious to see how it all uh ties together. So, Young Frankenstein, yes, that one. Yeah, yeah. I think that was the one. Um, I'd have to go back through. If you're in if you're into the Christmas slash Halloween stuff. Oh God, now what is it called? A a Chris a Christmas horror story. I quite enjoyed that one. It's like a series of vignettes that are all tied together. Um, two of them are like could do without, but I enjoyed the way that they all tied together. It like blew me away. Um, other than that, I don't know. I will. You watch the Split series other than the newest movie, right? You know they all tie together somehow, right? And so I had seen Unbreakable, and I'm pretty sure it was really freaking good. And then I watched Split, and that was also really good. And then it had the ending, which I was like, what? And then it had the thing at the end, like Split will return or whatever. And it was like, oh, okay. And then you look at it, and it's like, oh, it ties to that movie. What? So I would be curious. Yeah, that's one of the ones that I plan on watching. I watched the Hannibal is good. The second one I didn't enjoy, I don't think, as much at least. Just because it was such a great character, and then they adjusted the characterization of Hannibal, and I just it didn't do it for me after that. Um, but yeah, other than that, I'll have to do some thinking on that because I can't at the moment. I cannot remember like any movie that I watched. But yeah, we shall see. I will see if I can. I'll maybe post some of my favorites in the Discord closer to Spooptober because I can't be getting excited before then. But obviously I am. I'm sorry. All right, so this is our final story for the evening, The Greek Interpreter. Getting ourselves ready. Mm. All right. Sounds good. Excellent. And yes, if you have any other suggestions for me, I wrote them down, but you can also throw them in the Discord too, just so that I absolutely remember. And yeah, if you think of any as well, I would, because I kind of just Googled like the movies that you should watch, Halloween spooky movies that you should watch. But it's nice to have suggestions from people who actually know that they're good. So yes, so definitely let me know. The Greek Interpreter. During my long and intimate acquaintance with Mr. Sherlock Holmes, I had never heard him refer to his relations, and hardly ever to his own early life. This reticence upon his part had increased the somewhat inhuman effect which he produced upon me, until sometimes I found myself regarding him as an isolated phenomenon, a brain without a heart, as deficient in human sympathy as he was preeminent in intelligence. His aversion to women and his disinclination to form new friendships were both typical of his unemotional character, but not more so than his complete suppression of every reference to his own people. I had come to believe that he was an orphan, with no relatives living, but one day, to my very great surprise, he began to talk to me about his brother. Oh, here we go. Introduction. Well, good is always going to be subjective. Right, but I mean, that's fair, but also, no, that's actually a very fair assessment. But I don't know, maybe it's like it gives a little bit more where it's like, oh, there's that little bit of a connection which gives a more positive potential spin to whatever the movie is from the beginning. Maybe, I don't know. Because I mean, yeah, it is. It's like if it's not suggestions, then it's again just like taking Google, and that just feels so distant, so cold. I don't know. Your assessment is fair, and I'm just trying to justify myself. It was after tea on a summer evening, and the conversation, which had roamed in a desultory, spasmodic fashion from golf clubs to the causes of the change in the obliquity of the ecliptic, came round at last to the question of atavism and hereditary aptitudes. The point under discussion was how far any singular gift in an individual was due to his ancestry and how far to his own early training, nature versus nurture. In your own case, said I, from all that you have told me, it seems obvious that your faculty of observation and your peculiar facility for deduction are due to your own systematic training. To some extent, he answered thoughtfully. My ancestors were country squires, who appear to have led much the same life as is natural to their class. But nonetheless, my turn that way is in my veins, and may have come with my grandmother, who was the sister of Vernet, the French artist. Art in the blood is liable to take the strangest forms. Ooh, The City of Lost Children is an interesting movie, but it's in French. That's okay. I have a couple on my list that are in other languages as well. So, The City of Lost Children. And then I found it so interesting watching movies now that I've, again, heard references to, but not too many of them, and to see how different they were to what I imagined them being from my younger days and everything. Oh, the Silent Hill. Didn't you recommend that one to me? I enjoyed that one. Yeah. And then at the end it was so twisty, and I'm not sure. Not your typical film, that's for sure. And I'm films of all kinds because I just like the medium itself. So I'll be good. I'll be good with it. Silent Hill is one of your favorites. That one was good. I did enjoy that one. So there, I've already liked one of your suggestions, so I shall also like the others. That is my story. I'm sticking to it. But how do you know that it is hereditary? Because my brother Mycroft possesses it in a larger degree than I do. This was news to me indeed. If there were another man with such singular powers in England, how was it that neither police nor public had heard of him? I put the question, with a hint that it was my companion's modesty which made him acknowledge his brother as his superior. Holmes laughed at my suggestion. My dear Watson, said he, I cannot agree with those who rank modesty among the virtues. To the logician, all things should be seen exactly as they are, and to underestimate oneself is as much a departure from truth as to exaggerate one's own powers. When I say, therefore, that Mycroft has better powers of observation than I, you may take it that I am speaking the exact and literal truth. Is he your senior? Is he your junior? 7 years my senior. How comes it that he is unknown? Oh, he is very well known in his own circle. Where then? Well, in the Diogenes Club, for example. Oh God, which one is Diogenes? I'm trying to remember. They're coming out with a new game soon and a new movie, if you remember correctly. Oh God. I do. I'm feeling so like old because it does. I just dread every new movie. And even like new games, because like I don't play many games, but I've heard poor things about certain things. So it is. It's just, and I will blame the writing. It seems like people don't know how to write as well as they used to, and I feel like that can be considered fairly objective. So maybe, I don't know. Plus, you think Silent Hill 2 is getting a remaster. So, it is. It's just that it's the same, but it's just, it looks better, plays better, correct? That will be cool. Okay, sounds good. Well, I do. I hope they both come out well. A good game and a good movie. Fingers crossed. I watched Guardians of the Galaxy 3 recently with one of the small ones. And that was actually pretty good. So that was nice to have that faith somewhat restored. Except not. It was just more, I feel like it's more of a fluke, unfortunately. Hoping John Wick 4 is good. I have heard good things, so fingers are crossed. Need to watch that yet? Guardians of the Galaxy 3? It was pretty good. We did a marathon of it. And yeah. Okay, so if you watch that, you might want to watch the Christmas special or the holiday special, the Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special, because there's like a big thing that comes into there. So, yeah. Guardians of the Galaxy game was pretty good. Okay. I have that in my wish list, but I have not pulled the trigger on that yet. Waiting for those nice sales. Which story are we on? Hello, how's it going? We are on the Greek Interpreter. We've just kind of started. And they were talking about nature versus nurture, and Holmes said that his deduction stuff was nature, ancestral, because his brother Mycroft introduction has more of it than he does. So there, all caught up. But yes, I hope you're well. We shall continue. I was trying to remember. I cannot remember who Diogenes is. I used to know all the Greek stuff, but blah. It's been a while. So Mycroft is known in the Diogenes Club. I had never heard of the institution, and my face must have proclaimed as much, for Sherlock Holmes pulled out his watch. The Diogenes Club is the queerest club in London, and Mycroft one of the queerest men. He's always there from 5:15 to 8:20. It's 6 now, so if you care for a stroll this beautiful evening, I shall be very happy to introduce you to two curiosities. 5 minutes later, we were in the street, walking towards Regent's Circus. You wonder, said my companion, why it is that Mycroft does not use his powers for detective work. He is incapable of it. But I thought you said... I said that he was my superior in observation and deduction. If the art of the detective began and ended in reasoning from an armchair, my brother would be the greatest criminal agent that ever lived. But he has no ambition and no energy. He will not even go out of his way to verify his own solution, and would rather be considered wrong than take the trouble to prove himself right. Again and again I have taken a problem to him, and have received an explanation which has afterwards proved to be the correct one, and yet he was absolutely incapable of working out the practical points which must be gone into before a case could be laid before a judge or jury. Diogenes was one of the founders of cynicism, right, in Greek philosophy. So like, what would... Is he the behold a man with a chicken? With the chicken! Where the one guy said, sorry, getting excited. Where the one, was it, one of the philosophers said, man is a featherless biped. So then Diogenes shows up with a plucked chicken and goes, behold a man. Was that him? I feel like that's correct. Oh my God. Okay. Excellent. Amazing. I like that. Thank you. I appreciate that. It is not his profession then. By no means. What is it to me a means of livelihood? What is to me a means of livelihood is to him the merest hobby of a dilettante. He has an extraordinary faculty for figures and audits the books in some of the government departments. Mycroft lodges in Pall Mall, and he walks round the corner into Whitehall every morning and back every evening. From year's end to year's end, he takes no other exercise and is seen nowhere else, except only in the Diogenes Club, which is just opposite his rooms. I cannot recall the name. Very likely not. There are many men in London, you know, who, some from shyness, some from misanthropy, have no wish for the company of their fellows. Yet they are not averse to comfortable chairs and the latest periodicals. It is for the convenience of these that the Diogenes Club was started, and it now contains the most unsociable and unclubbable men in town. No member is permitted to take the least notice of any other one. Save in the stranger's room, no talking is, under any circumstances, allowed, and 3 offenses, if brought to the notice of the committee, render the talker liable to expulsion. My brother was one of the founders, and I have myself found it a very soothing atmosphere. So why don't we have things like this in reality? You don't remember? Okay, no, absolutely fine. I'm pretty sure that's correct. Don't quote me on it, but I'm pretty sure. We had reached Pall Mall as we talked, and were walking down it from the St. James's end. Sherlock Holmes stopped at a door some little distance from the Carlton, and, cautioning me not to speak, he led the way into the hall. Through the glass paneling, I caught a glimpse of a large and luxurious room, in which a considerable number of men were sitting about and reading papers, each in his own little nook. Holmes showed me into a small chamber, which looked out into Pall Mall, and then, leaving me for a minute, he came back with a companion, whom I knew could only be his brother. Mycroft Holmes was a much larger and stouter man than Sherlock. His body was absolutely corpulent, but his face, though massive, had preserved something of the sharpness of expression which was so remarkable in that of his brother. His eyes, which were of a peculiarly light, watery gray, seemed to always retain that far-away, introspective look which I had only observed in Sherlock's when he was exerting his full powers. If you remember correctly, it wasn't one of the Holmes novels about the Mormons. LVO. Okay, so... All right. Well, we'll keep that in mind. Heads up incoming. What does that mean? Oh, God, I'm scared. Hello, by the way. How's it going? I hope you're well. Oh, oops. Sorry. I am glad to meet you, sir, said he. Sorry. I am glad to meet you, sir, said he, putting out a broad, fat hand like the flipper of a seal. I hear of Sherlock everywhere since you became his chronicler. By the way, Sherlock, I expected to see you around last week to consult me over that Manor House case. I thought you might be a little out of your depth. No, I solved it, said my friend, smiling. It was Adams, of course. Yes, it was Adams. Doing great, good, excellent. I'm glad. Hope so. Yay. So if you're curious, we're just reading Greek Interpreter, and we're just meeting Mycroft, Sherlock's brother, and that's about it. So I was sure of it from the first. The two sat down together in the bow window of the club. To anyone who wishes to study mankind, this is the spot, said Mycroft. Look at the magnificent types. Look at these two men who are coming towards us, for example. The billiard marker and the other? Precisely. What do you make of the other? Another movie which suggests it isn't rated that highly, okay, but they made some errors in it, which you find funny. The Last Survivors. Okay, sounds good. You know what another thing that I realized that I'm kind of into? Like really terrible B movie. Like B monster movie things. Hello, Mustafa! Thank you for the raid! How are you? How are you all? How was your stream? What were you doing? Thank you for the follow, Average Yankee Zulu Spotter. Heidi ho, yo. Raid, hello, thank you. I appreciate you all being here. Welcome. We're doing something different today. He was pretend flying again. Always a good pastime. So this is another one of the things that I do. We read, and we're currently reading Sherlock. So, welcome to the story. Almost planted you into the Grand Canyon. Intentionally? Leg number 2 of Coast to Coast Comanche Needles, Coast to Coast Comanche Needles, California to Page, Arizona, by way of the Grand Canyon. Ooh, you did that. It was butter. Okay. I'm not sure whose word I should take more likely. Personally, you like the movie, but it is rated 5.3 out of 10. Okay, so that was the Lost Survivors? Last Survivors. Okay. Putting it on the list. And there's such a like divergence between like what people actually like and how things are rated. So yeah, I'm totally willing to go for that. But yeah, so like B monster movies are they're sometimes so fun looking at them from like a technical perspective and just being like, oh my god, that's so terrible. I have to watch more. Like Cocaine Bear. Cocaine Bear was actually really enjoyable. Of course, not intentional. Actually, you know what? It might have been. Okay. There is a VOD that proves you are correct. There we go. Just gotta watch the evidence. Jury's out. If I watch it, tell me what is wrong with the movie. Oh, okay. Can I ask, is it technical or like story-wise? Did I really enjoy it? Cocaine Bear? Yeah, you got annoyed with it? Okay, so I enjoyed it again because I liked that it didn't take itself too seriously. Like, it knew exactly what it was. Kind of like, I think, the later Sharknadoes, if that makes sense. So, yeah. Monsters in the Closet, great B monster flick. Okay. I'm trying to think. That's not the one with the one guy. Howie Mandel? No, that's different, isn't it? That's like Little Monsters or something, isn't it? Monsters in the Closet. Okay, I have it down. You mean you understand that it's so bad it's good? Right, and that's exactly what it was. And there may have been a little bit of libations, which is usually how that goes. So at least that was the intention, right? Um, yeah. That's basically what it is. I like laughing at movies just because I used to be into like the making of them and everything. So yeah, that's kind of it. It is airplane related. Um, is the Last Survivors? Is that the one? Is it a girl who flies and then plane crash? Because I have been told to watch that one. If that is the same one, never mind. That is a completely different one. Sorry. Um, okay, I did. Yes. Make sure I wrote it down. Thought I was talking about old bad B movies. Oh yes, I like those as well. Like if they're on TV and I'm in a mood for it, I'll just pop it on and it's just so much fun to laugh at it and shake my head at it. um I have no subs. I am not an affiliate. I could be, but I don't want to because I don't want ads. So yeah, there's that. No plane crash. Okay. Sounds good. All right. Mystery Science Theater fan. Okay, so I will have to. I don't think I've ever actually uh had the pleasure of that, so I will have to look into that as well. We did. We got on this. We got on this because we're getting excited for Spooptober. And I like to make the most of it by watching as many spoopy, horror-y, make sure I enunciate that, um, stuff as possible. So, yes. So Mystery Science Theater, I will have to look into that as well. Any good airplane novels to read? I need to watch read Bat 21 so I can finally watch the movie at some point because it was a book. It was a book first. So there's that one. I have a couple of other ones that I have gotten, and it's like they're tales from a fighter pilot. So I'm not sure if they're like fiction or not. Other than that, I'm not sure. Stick and Rudder, not necessarily a novel, but you like the Mystery Science Theater 3K shorts? Okay, I will have to look into that as well. Okay, y'all are indulging my need for Spooptober, but it is not even September yet. It almost is, but I need to keep. Must be excited for fall first, and then the Spoopins. Oh, okay. Ernie Gann's Flying Circus. That sounds familiar. There are some good ones. While you use the term good loosely, absolutely fair. Again, so good they're bad. Flying Circus. And there's a can I just say Mystic? It looks like I could say Mystic channel on Twitch. Okay. That would be fun. Write that down too. Anybody ever watch Mad movies? I haven't. Is that a recommendation as well? All right, I'm gonna write that down, and then we're gonna get at least a little bit more of the of the story read that we're reading while y'all keep chatting. Didn't know that you're guessing it's the same showing. Oh, okay, excellent. That would be cool, and that's an interesting medium. I like it. Okay, all right, continuing. I appreciate you all being here. Again, we just met Mycroft, and they're discussing things. So it was clearly Adams, and now they're talking about the people who are approaching them, the billiard marker, and what do you think of the other? The two men had stopped opposite the window. Some chalk marks over the waistcoat pocket were the only signs of billiards which I could see in one of them. The other was a very small, dark fellow, with his hat pushed back and several packages under his arm. An old soldier, I perceive, said Sherlock, and very recently discharged, remarked the brother. Served in India, I see, and a non-commissioned officer. Royal Artillery, I fancy, said Sherlock, and a widower, but with a child. Children, my dear boy, children. Come, said I, laughing, this is a little too much. Surely, answered Holmes. It is not hard to say that a man with that bearing, expression of authority, and sun-baked skin is a soldier, is more than a private, and is not long from India. That he has not left the service long is shown by his still wearing his ammunition boots, as they are called, observed Mycroft. He had not the cavalry stride, yet he wore his hat on one side, as is shown by the lighter skin of that side of his brow. His weight is against his being a sapper. He is in the artillery. Then, of course, his complete mourning shows that he has lost someone very dear. The fact that he is doing his own shopping looks as though it were his wife. He has been buying things for children, you perceive. There is a rattle, which shows that one of them is very young. The wife probably died in childbed. The fact that he has a picture book under his arm shows that there is another child to be thought of. I began to understand what my friend meant when he said that his brother possessed even keener faculties than he did himself. He glanced across at me and smiled. Mycroft took snuff from a tortoiseshell box and brushed away the wandering grains from his coat front with a large red silk handkerchief. Okay. I will put it on the... Boom. A must-watch on stream? Are we watching it on stream after we read this one? Is that what's happening? It's not going to spoil anything for any future stories, right? Possibly currently showing teenage caveman. Oh, okay. See, and that's what I loved too about the older somewhat horror, somewhat monster stuff is like the titles of them where they're so like exactly what it is, but it ends up coming off so funny. So the difference between Mycroft and Sherlock is that Sherlock isn't a prick, you're seeing. Mycroft isn't a prick. I don't know. I guess that depends on how it's read. Because where was it? I did hear one thing in Mycroft. Well, okay, so hang on. So Sherlock said Sherlock, and then add a widower, and then but with a child. Children, my dear boy, children. So I don't know. Could you read that as being prickish? And no, like, so characterization of Sherlock, I feel it's a lot different in the actual stories. And to some degree there could be, you could take him as being a little bit prickish, but at the same time he does, as he said earlier, the whole logician thing. Sorry, where is it? Going back. To the logician, all things should be seen exactly as they are, and to underestimate oneself is as much a departure from truth as to exaggerate one's own powers. And he said that in response because he himself said that Mycroft possesses that power of deduction in a greater degree than he does. So, I guess maybe I'm maybe I'm is conflating the right word? Prick and arrogant. I guess you can still be a prick without being arrogant. So perhaps we'll see. We'll see how it continues to come off. By the way, Sherlock, said he, I have had something quite after your own heart, a most singular problem, submitted to my judgment. I really had not the energy to follow it up, save in a very incomplete fashion. but it gave me a basis for some pleasing speculation. If you would care to hear the facts. My dear Mycroft, I should be delighted. The brother scribbled a note upon a leaf of his pocketbook, and, ringing the bell, he handed it to the waiter. I have asked Mr. Melas to step across, said he. He lodges on the floor above me, and I have some slight acquaintance with him, which led him to come to me in his perplexity. Mr. Melas is a Greek by extraction, as I understand, and he is a remarkable linguist. He earns his living partly as interpreter in the law courts, and partly by acting as guide to any wealthy Orientals who may visit the Northumberland Avenue hotels. I think I will leave him to tell his very remarkable experience in his own fashion. A few minutes later, we were joined by a short, stout man whose olive face and coal-black hair proclaimed his southern origin, though his speech was that of an educated Englishman. He shook hands eagerly with Sherlock Holmes, and his dark eyes sparkled with pleasure when he understood that the specialist was anxious to hear his story. I do not believe that the police credit me. On my word, I do not, said he in a wailing voice. Just because they have never heard of it before, they think that such a thing cannot be. But I know that I shall never be easy in my mind until I know what has become of my poor man with the sticking plaster upon his face. I am all attention, said Sherlock Holmes. This is Wednesday evening, said Mr. Melas. Well then, it was Monday night. Wait, this is Wednesday evening, said Mr. Melas. Well then, it was Monday night, only 2 days ago, you understand, that all this happened. I am an interpreter, as perhaps my neighbor there has told you. I interpret all languages, or nearly all, but as I am a Greek by birth, and with a Grecian name, it is with that particular tongue that I am principally associated. For many years I have been the chief Greek interpreter in London, and my name is very well known in the hotels. It happens not infrequently that I am sent for at strange hours by foreigners who get into difficulties, or by travelers who arrive late and wish my services. I was not surprised, therefore, on Monday night, when a Mr. Latimer, a very fashionably dressed young man, came up to my rooms and asked me to accompany him in a cab which was waiting at the door. A Greek friend had come to see him upon business, he said, and as he could speak nothing but his own tongue, the services of an interpreter were indispensable. He gave me to understand that his house was some little distance off, in Kensington, and he seemed to be in a great hurry, bustling me rapidly into the cab when we had descended to the street. I say into the cab, but I soon became doubtful as to whether it was not a carriage in which I found myself. It was certainly more roomy than the ordinary four-wheeled disgrace to London, and the fittings, though frayed, were of rich quality. Mr. Latimer seated himself opposite to me, and we started off through Charing Cross and up the Shaftesbury Avenue. We had come out upon Oxford Street, and I had ventured some remark as to this being a roundabout way to Kensington, when my words were arrested by the extraordinary conduct of my companion. He began by drawing a most formidable-looking bludgeon loaded with lead from his pocket, and switching it backward and forward several times, as if to test its weight and strength. Then he placed it without a word upon the seat beside him. Having done this, he drew up the windows on each side, and I found, to my astonishment, that they were covered with paper so as to prevent my seeing through them. I am sorry to cut off your view, Mr. Melas, said he. The fact is that I have no intention that you should see what the place is to which we are driving. It might possibly be inconvenient to me if you could find your way there again. That's friggin' ominous. As you can imagine, I was utterly taken aback by such an address. My companion was a powerful, broad-shouldered young fellow, and apart from the weapon, I should not have had the slightest chance in a struggle with him. This is very extraordinary conduct, Mr. Latimer, I stammered. You must be aware that what you are doing is quite illegal. It is somewhat of a liberty, no doubt, said he, but we'll make it up to you. I must warn you, however, Mr. Melas, that if at any time tonight you attempt to raise an alarm, or do anything which is against my interests, you will find it a very serious thing. I beg you to remember that no one knows where you are, and that, whether you are in this carriage or in my house, You are equally in my power. God. His words were quiet, but he had a rasping way of saying them which was very menacing. I sat in silence, wondering what on earth could be his reason for kidnapping me in this extraordinary fashion. Whatever it might be, it was perfectly clear that there was no possible use in my resisting, and that I could only wait to see what might befall. For nearly 2 hours we drove without my having the least clue as to where we were going. Sometimes the rattle of the stones told of a paved causeway, and at others our smooth, silent course suggested asphalt. But, save by this variation in sound, there was nothing at all which could in the remotest way help me to form a guess as to where we were. The paper over each window was impenetrable to light, and a blue curtain was drawn across the glasswork in front. It was 7:15 when we left Pall Mall, and my watch showed me that it was 10 minutes to 9 when we at last came to a standstill. My companion let down the window, and I caught a glimpse of a low, arched doorway with a lamp burning above it. As I was hurried from the carriage, it swung open, and I found myself inside the house, with a vague impression of a lawn and trees on each side of me as I entered. Whether these were private grounds, however, or bona fide country was more than I could possibly venture to say. Reminds me a little bit of... oh God, I'm trying to remember which one it was. There was another one. And I can't remember which one it was called. He bought the fancy paper. Oh, yes. I mean, wouldn't you? I can't. It happened by train, and then it was by horse. And I can't remember what it was. And there was the machine. There was the big machine in it. There was a colored gas lamp inside which was turned so low that I could see little save that the hall was of some size and hung with pictures. In the dim light, I could make out that the person who had opened the door was a small, mean-looking, middle-aged man with rounded shoulders. As he turned towards us, the glint of the light showed me that he was wearing glasses. "Is this Mr. Melas, Harold?" said he. "Yes." Well done. No ill will, Mr. Melas, I hope, but we could not get on without you. If you deal fair with us, you'll not regret it. But if you try any tricks, God help you." He spoke in a nervous, jerky fashion, and with little giggling laughs in between, but somehow he impressed me with fear more than the other. "What do you want with me?" I asked. "Only to ask a few questions of a Greek gentleman who is visiting us, and to let us have the answers. But say no more than you are told to say, or," here came the nervous giggle again, "you had better never have been born." I love that when it's like well written, and we'll see how it continues to go. Where, yeah, like the menace is there more because of it's more menacing being less menacing, if that makes sense. But it does. It has to be well written. As he spoke, he opened a door and showed the way into a room which appeared to be very richly furnished. But again, the only light was afforded by a single lamp half turned down. The chamber was certainly large, and the way in which my feet sank into the carpet as I stepped across it told me of its richness. I caught glimpses of velvet chairs, a high white marble mantelpiece, and what seemed to be a suit of Japanese armor at one side of it. There was a chair just under the lamp, and the elderly man motioned that I should sit in it. The younger had left us, but he suddenly returned through another door, leading with him a gentleman clad in some sort of loose dressing gown, who moved slowly towards us. As he came into the circle of dim light, which enables me to see him more clearly, I was thrilled with horror at his appearance. He was deadly pale and terribly emaciated, with the protruding, brilliant eyes of a man whose spirit was greater than his strength. But what shocked me more than any signs of physical weakness was that his face was grotesquely crisscrossed with sticking plaster, and that one large pad of it was fastened over his mouth. Oh, sorry for that bit. Oh, if that came through. No, it didn't. Ah. My chat bots are talking to me, I guess. Have you the slate, Harold? Cried the older man, as this strange being fell rather than sat down into a chair. Are his hands loose? Now then, give him the pencil. You are to ask the questions, Mr. Melas, and he will write the answers. Ask him first of all whether he is prepared to sign the papers. The man's eyes flashed fire. Never, he wrote in Greek upon the slate. On no condition, I asked at the bidding of our tyrant. Only if I see her married in my presence by a Greek priest whom I know. I also wanted to say, I love this writing up in here. So good. Okay. So, only if I see her married in my presence by a Greek priest whom I know. The man giggled in his venomous way. You know what awaits you, then. I care nothing for myself. These are samples of the questions and answers which made up our strange, half-spoken, half-written conversation. Again and again I had to ask him whether he would give in and sign the documents. Again and again I had the same indignant reply. But soon a happy thought came to me. I took to adding on little sentences of my own to each question, innocent ones at first, to test whether either of our companions knew anything of the matter, and then, as I found that they showed no signs, I played a more dangerous game. Our conversation ran something like this. You can do no good by this obstinacy. Who are you? I care not. I am a stranger in London. Your fate will be upon your own head. How long have you been here? Let it be so. 3 weeks. The property can never be yours. What ails you? It shall not go to villains. They are starving me. You shall go free if you sign. What house is this? I will never sign. I do not know. You are not doing her any service. What is your name? Let me hear her say so. Cratides. You shall see her. You shall see her if you sign. Where are you from? Then I shall never see her. Athens. Sorry, 1 second. Let me check. Let me check my box. Okay. I think we're okay. Okay. Sorry, I realized I should be paranoid if things pop up like that. Okay, but we should be good. Another 5 minutes, Mr. Holmes, and I should have wormed out the whole story under their very noses. My very next question might have cleared the matter up, but at that instant the door opened and a woman stepped into the room. I could not see her clearly enough to know more than that she was tall and graceful, with black hair and clad in some sort of loose white gown. Harold, said she, speaking English with a broken accent, I could not stay away longer. It is so lonely up there with only. Oh my God, it is Paul. You can tell in the spoken conversation that they're playing for time on that end of. Oh, yeah. Good call. Okay, definitely. Ooh, interesting. Now we see. These last words were in Greek, and at the same instant, the man, with a convulsive effort, tore the plaster from his lips and, screaming out, Sophie, Sophie, rushed into the woman's arms. Their embrace was but for an instant, however, for the younger man seized the woman and pushed her out of the room, while the elder easily overpowered his emaciated victim and dragged him away through the other door. For a moment, I was left alone in the room, and I sprang to my feet with some vague idea that I might in some way get a clue to what this house was. Sorry. For a moment I was left alone in the room, and I sprang to my feet with some vague idea that I might in some way get a clue to what this house was in which I found myself. Fortunately, however, I took no steps, for looking up, I saw that the older man was standing in the doorway, with his eyes fixed upon me. That will do, Mr. Melas, said he. You perceive that we have taken you into our confidence over some very private business. We should not have troubled you, only that our friend who speaks Greek and who began these negotiations has been forced to return to the East. It was quite necessary for us to find someone to take his place, and we were fortunate in hearing of your powers. I bowed. There are 5 sovereigns here, said he, walking up to me, which will, I hope, be a sufficient fee. But remember, he added, tapping me lightly on the chest and giggling, if you speak to a human soul about this, one human soul, mind, well, may God have mercy upon your soul. I cannot tell you the loathing and horror with which this insignificant-looking man inspired me. I could see him better now as the lamplight shone upon him. His features were peaky and sallow. Oh, shoot, sorry, gosh darn it. His features were peaky and sallow, and his little pointed beard was thready and ill-nourished. He pushed his face forward as he spoke, and his lips and eyelids were continually twitching like a man with St. Vitus's dance. Vitus's? I could not help thinking that his strange, catchy little laugh was also a symptom of some nervous malady. The terror of his face lay in his eyes, however, steel gray and glistening coldly with a malignant, inexorable cruelty in their depths. We shall know if you speak of this, said he. We have our own means of information. Now you will find the carriage waiting, and my friend will see you on your way. I was hurried through the hall and into the vehicle, again obtaining that momentary glimpse of trees and a garden. Mr. Latimer followed closely at my heels, and took his place opposite to me without a word. In silence, we again drove for an interminable distance, with the windows raised, until at last, just after midnight, the carriage pulled up. You will get down here, Mr. Melas, said my companion. I am sorry to leave you so far from your house, but there is no alternative. Any attempt upon your part to follow the carriage can only end in injury to yourself. He opened the door as he spoke, and I had hardly time to spring out when the coachman lashed the horse and the carriage rattled away. I looked around me in astonishment. I was on some sort of a heathy common mottled over with dark clumps of furze bushes. Far away stretched a line of houses, with a light here and there in the upper windows. On the other side, I saw the red signal lamps of a railway. The carriage which had brought me was already out of sight. I stood gazing round and wondering where on earth I might be, when I saw someone coming towards me in the darkness. As he came up to me, I made out that he was a railway porter. Can you tell me what place this is? I asked. Wandsworth Common, said he. Can I get a train into town? If you walk on a mile or so to Clapham Junction, said he, you'll just be in time for the last to Victoria. So that was the end of my adventure, Mr. Holmes. I do not know where I was, nor whom I spoke with, nor anything save what I have told you, but I know that there is foul play going on, and I want to help that unhappy man if I can. I told the whole story to Mr. Mycroft Holmes next morning, and subsequently to the police. Uh-oh. We shall see. We all sat in silence for some little time after listening to this extraordinary narrative. Then Sherlock looked across at his brother. Any steps? He asked. Mycroft picked up the Daily News, which was lying on the side table. Anybody supplying any information as to the whereabouts of a Greek gentleman named Paul Cratides from Athens, who is unable to speak English, will be rewarded. A similar reward paid to anyone giving information about a Greek lady whose first name is Sophie, X2473. That was in all the dailies. No answer. How about the Greek legation? I have inquired. They know nothing. A wire to the head of the Athens police, then? Sherlock has all the energy of the family, said Mycroft, turning to me. Well, you take the case up by all means, and let me know if you do any good. Certainly, answered my friend, rising from his chair. I'll let you know, and Mr. Melas also. In the meantime, Mr. Melas, I should certainly be on my guard, if I were you, for of course they must know, through these advertisements, that you have betrayed them. As we walked home together, Holmes stopped at a telegraph office and sent off several wires. Occasionally my mic's buzzing. Oh, I'm sorry. Is it terrible? Is it horrible? Is it Is it like a technical thing, or is it how I'm pronouncing things? I'll see if I can adjust it on chicken. I know I should totally get a better mic. Um, if you have any recommendations, not too expensive, let me know. Um, yeah, like a mild electrical buzz. Okay, yeah, you know what? I do think I am aware of that. It usually doesn't come into play except in these. So, yeah, no, I think I know what you're talking about. So I should get a better mic at some point. I haven't at the time. I'm using my chicken as a microphone stand. Oh yes, he is a most excellent microphone stand, as well as a co-pilot. Chicken is everything. He loves it. He loves being part of it. He's also fat and squat and cuddly, so that also helps. But yes, sorry for the buzzing. Can't do anything about it at the moment. We'll look into it for the future. Thank you for letting me know, though. You see, Watson, he remarked, our evening has been by no means wasted. Some of my most interesting cases have come to me in this way, through Mycroft. The problem which we have just listened to, although it can admit of but one explanation, has still some distinguishing features. You have hopes of solving it? Well, knowing as much as we do, it will be singular indeed if we fail to discover the rest. You must yourself have formed some theory which will explain the facts to which we have listened. In a vague way, yes? In a vague way, yes. In a vague way, yes. What was your idea then? It seemed to me to be obvious that this Greek girl had been carried off by the young Englishman named Harold Latimer. Carried off from where? Athens, perhaps. Sherlock Holmes shook his head. This young man could not talk a word of Greek. The lady could talk English fairly well. Inference that she had been in England some little time, but he had not been in Greece. Wait, what? Hang on. Okay. Sorry. Sherlock Holmes shook his head. This young man could not talk a word of Greek. The lady could talk English fairly well. Inference that she had been in England some little time, but he had not been in Greece. Well, then, we will presume that she had come on a visit to England, and that this Harold had persuaded her to fly with him. That is more probable. You like the chicken? I like the chicken too. They like you. Do you like that? Yeah. He's very happy. He says thank you. He is. He's cute. I like him. So that's actually another one of the reasons why I hesitate to get a new microphone. Because then what am I going to do about chicken? We would figure something out. Then the brother, for that I fancy must be the relationship, comes over from Greece to interfere. He imprudently puts himself into the power of the young man and his older associate. They seize him and use violence towards him in order to make him sign some papers to make over the girl's fortune, of which he may be trustee to them. This he refuses to do. In order to negotiate with him, they have to get an interpreter, and they pitch upon this Mr. Melas, having used some other one before. The girl is not told of the arrival of her brother, and finds it out by the merest accident. Excellent, Watson, cried Holmes. I really fancy that you are not far from the truth. You see that we hold all the cards, and we have only to fear some sudden act of violence on their part. If they give us time, we must have them. But how can we find where this house lies? Well, if our conjecture is correct, and the girl's name is, or was, Sophie Cratides, we should have no difficulty in tracing her. That must be our main hope, for the brother is, of course, a complete stranger. It is clear that some time has elapsed since this Harold established these relations with the girl, some weeks at any rate, since the brother in Greece has had time to hear of it and come across. If they have been living in the same place during this time, it is probable that we shall have some answer to Mycroft's advertisement. We had reached our house in Baker Street while we had been talking. Holmes ascended the stair first, and as he opened the door of our room, he gave a start of surprise. Looking over his shoulder, I was equally astonished. His brother Mycroft was sitting smoking in the armchair. Come in, Sherlock. Come in, sir. Come in, Sherlock. Come in, sir, said he blandly, smiling at our surprised faces. You don't expect such energy from me, do you, Sherlock? But somehow this case attracts me. How did you get here? I passed you in a hansom. I can just imagine him, like, probably seeing them on the way, just giggling to himself. In a very proper English way, there has been some new development. I had an answer to my advertisement. Ah. Yes, it came within a few minutes of your leaving. And to what effect? Mycroft Holmes took out a sheet of paper. Here it is, said he, written with a J pen on royal cream paper by a middle-aged man with a weak constitution. Sir, he says, in answer to your advertisement of today's date, I beg to inform you that I know the young lady in question very well. If you should care to call upon me, I could give you some particulars as to her painful history. She is living at present at the Myrtles, Beckenham. Yours faithfully, J. Davenport. He writes from Lower Brixton, said Mycroft Holmes. Do you not think that we might drive to him now, Sherlock, and learn these particulars? My dear Mycroft, the brother's life is more valuable than the sister's story. I think we should call at Scotland Yard for Inspector Gregson and go straight out to Beckenham. We know that a man is being done to death, and every hour may be vital. Better pick up Mr. Melas on our way, I suggested. We may need an interpreter. Excellent, said Sherlock Holmes. Send the boy for a four-wheeler, and we shall be off at once. He opened the table drawer as he spoke, and I noticed that he slipped his revolver into his pocket. Here it goes. Yes, said he, in answer to my glance. I should say from what we have heard that we are dealing with a particularly dangerous gang. It was almost dark before we found ourselves in Pall Mall, in the rooms of Mr. Melas. A gentleman had just called for him, and he was gone. Uh-oh. Can you tell me where? Asked Mycroft Holmes. I don't know, sir, answered the woman who had opened the door. I only know that he drove away with a gentleman in a carriage. Did the gentleman give a name? No, sir. He wasn't a tall, handsome, dark young man. Oh, no, sir. He was a little gentleman, with glasses, thin in the face, but very pleasant in his ways, for he was laughing all the time that he was talking. There should be an extra L, but that was so good. Come along, cried Sherlock Holmes abruptly. This grows serious, he observed as we drove to Scotland Yard. These men have got hold of Melas again. He is a man of no physical courage, as they are well aware from their experience the other night. This villain was able to terrorize him the instant that he got into his presence. No doubt they want his professional services, but, having used him, they may be inclined to punish him for what they will regard as his treachery. Our hope was that, by taking train, we might get to Beckenham as soon or sooner than the carriage. On reaching Scotland Yard, however, it was more than an hour before we could get Inspector Gregson and comply with the legal formalities which would enable us to enter the house. It was 10:15 before we reached London Bridge, and half past before the four of us alighted on the Beckenham platform. A drive of half a mile brought us to the Myrtles, a large, dark house standing back from the road in its own grounds. Here, we dismissed our cab and made our way up the drive together. The windows are all dark, remarked the inspector. The house seems deserted. Our birds are flown and the nest empty, said Holmes. Why do you say so? A carriage heavily loaded with luggage has passed out during the last hour. The inspector laughed. I saw the wheel tracks in the light of the gate lamp, but where does the luggage come in? You may have observed the same wheel tracks going the other way, but the outward bound ones were very much deeper, so much so that we can say for a certainty that there was a very considerable weight on the carriage. You get a trifle beyond me there, said the inspector, shrugging his shoulder. It will not be an easy door to force, but we will try if we cannot make someone hear us. He hammered loudly at the knocker and pulled at the bell, but without any success. Holmes had slipped away, but he came back in a few minutes. I have a window open, said he. It is a mercy that you are on the side of the force, and not against it, Mr. Holmes, remarked the inspector. as he noted the clever way in which my friend had forced back the catch. Well, I think that under the circumstances, we may enter without an invitation. One after the other, we made our way into a large apartment, which was evidently that in which Mr. Melas had found himself. The inspector had lit his lantern, and by its light we could see the two doors, the curtain, the lamp, and the suit of Japanese mail as he had described them. On the table lay 2 glasses, an empty brandy bottle, and the remains of a meal. "What is that?" asked Holmes suddenly. We all stood still and listened. A low, moaning sound was coming from somewhere over our heads. Holmes rushed to the door and out into the hall. The dismal noise came from upstairs. He dashed up, the inspector and I at his heels, while his brother Mycroft followed as quickly as his great bulk would permit. This is all too easy so far, is it? Is it? We shall see, we shall find out. 3 doors faced up upon the second floor, and it was from the central of these that the sinister sounds were issuing, sinking sometimes into a dull mumble and rising again into a shrill whine. It was locked, but the key had been left on the outside. Holmes flung open the door and rushed in, but he was out again in an instant, with his hand to his throat. "It's charcoal," he cried. "Give it time. It will clear." Peering in, we could see that the only light in the room came from a dull blue flame which flickered from a small brass tripod in the center. It threw a livid, unnatural circle upon the floor, while in the shadows beyond we saw the vague loom of 2 figures which crouched against the wall. From the open door there reeked a horrible, poisonous exhalation which set us gasping and coughing. Holmes rushed to the top of the stairs to draw in the fresh air, and then, dashing into the room, he threw up the window and hurled the brazen tripod out into the garden. You've never read this before. You're just guessing that it won't be this easy. Oh, you never know, because I've read these before, but it is what I love most about these is that even if you do figure out the ending, it's still so good. So it might be. It's the writing itself that's so great. It might not be twisty, puzzly too much, but it is still good. But yes, you'll have to let us know if you got it right. "We can enter in a minute," he gasped, darting out again. "Where is a candle? I doubt if we could strike a match in that atmosphere. Hold the light at the door and we shall get them out, Mycroft. Now." With a rush, we got to the poisoned men and dragged them out into the well-lit hall. Both of them were blue-lipped and insensible, with swollen, congested faces and protruding eyes. Indeed, so distorted were their features that, save for his black beard and stout figure, we might have failed to recognize in one of them the Greek interpreter who had parted from us only a few hours before at the Diogenes Club. His hands and feet were securely strapped together, and he bore over one eye the marks of a violent blow. The other, who was secured in a similar fashion, was a tall man in the last stage of emaciation, with several strips of sticking plaster arranged in a grotesque pattern over his face. He had ceased to moan as we laid him down, and a glance showed me that for him, at least, our aid had come too late. Oh. Mr. Melas, however, still lived, and in less than an hour, with the aid of ammonia and brandy, I had the satisfaction of seeing him open his eyes, and of knowing that my hand had drawn him back from that dark valley in which all paths meet. It was a simple story which he had to tell, and one which did but confirm our own deductions. His visitor, on entering his rooms, had drawn a life-preserver from his sleeve, and had so impressed him with the fear of instant and inevitable death that he had kidnapped him for the second time. Indeed, it was almost mesmeric, the effect which this giggling ruffian had produced upon the unfortunate linguist, for he could not speak of him save with trembling hands and a blanched cheek. He had been taken swiftly to Beckenham, and had acted as interpreter in a second interview, even more dramatic than the first, in which the 2 Englishmen had menaced their prisoner with instant death if he did not comply with their demands. Finally, finding him proof against every threat, they had hurled him back into his prison, and after reproaching Melas with his treachery, which appeared from the newspaper advertisement, they had stunned him with a blow from a stick, and he remembered nothing more until he found us bending over him. And this was the singular case of the Grecian interpreter, the explanation of which is still involved in some mystery. We were able to find out, by communicating with the gentleman who had answered the advertisement, that the unfortunate young lady came of a wealthy Grecian family, and that she had been on a visit to some friends in England. While there, she had met a young man named Harold Latimer, who had acquired an ascendancy over her and had eventually persuaded her to fly with him. Her friends, shocked at the event, had contented themselves with informing her brother at Athens, and had then washed their hands of the matter. The brother, on his arrival in England, had imprudently placed himself in the power of Latimer and of his associate, whose name was Wilson Kemp, a man of the foulest antecedents. These two, finding that through his ignorance of the language he was helpless in their hands, had kept him a prisoner, and had endeavored by cruelty and starvation to make him sign away his own and his sister's property. They had kept him in the house without the girl's knowledge, and the plaster over the face had been for the purpose of making recognition difficult in case she should ever catch a glimpse of him. Her feminine perception, however, had instantly seen through the disguise when, on the occasion of the interpreter's visit, she had seen him for the first time. The poor girl, however, was herself a prisoner, for there was no one about the house except the man who acted as coachman and his wife, both of whom were tools of the conspirators. Finding that their secret was out, and that their prisoner was not to be coerced, the two villains with the girl had fled away at a few hours' notice from the furnished house which they had hired, having first, as they thought, taken vengeance both upon the man who had defied and the one who had betrayed them. Months afterwards, a curious newspaper cutting reached us from Budapest. It told how two Englishmen, who had been traveling with a woman, had met with a tragic end. They had each been stabbed, it seems, and the Hungarian police were of opinion that they had quarreled and had inflicted mortal injuries upon each other. Holmes, however, is, I fancy, of a different way of thinking, and holds to this day that, if one could find the Grecian girl, one might learn how the wrongs of herself and her brother came to be avenged. Oh, so good. Plaster is a predecessor of a Band-Aid, basically, right? Yes. So they were that and or yes, sticking plaster and disfiguring the face. Thank you for the follow, Mango Chun. I appreciate it. Oh my god, that was so good. I like that. I like the first one too. But this one did. It had that really sinister like Jaws theme to it. But yeah, not in like a monstrous way. It was. So again, the first one we did talk about how it was less punchy. It was a little bit more fact-based, and it just kind of like happened and everything was laid out. And then this one it did have the it had the more sensational bent to it, but again, not in such a way that it was too much. It was just so well written. And then I thought it was interesting having the Greek reference to the in the original one with the Scylla and Charybdis, and then bringing this one up. So again, as we're reading them in order, it makes me wonder, did that have something to do with it? Like, was he working on the Greek interpreter and that's why he came up with the Scylla and Charybdis reference? Or did he have the Scylla and Charybdis reference and was like, oh, I should write something about a Greek? So, yeah. And again, it is, like, going back to the whole, it's the little giggling man who is more sinister than the actual sinister person. And that's something that, at this point, maybe it is, to a degree, a trope. But it's done so well here that it doesn't it didn't lose any of its potency. So, yeah, it just there is just through the whole thing. There's just that darkness, and then it did like it is. It's sad. It comes to the where Sistamone laid him down. At least for him, our aid had come too late. Ugh, that's like it's a little bit of a punch in the gut, but then other guy comes through, and then you get that really delicious, probable vengeance in one freaking paragraph right at the end. Oh, so good. Anyway, sorry. Oh, that one really hit my my fiction puzzly nerve. Oh, okay, so time for lighter fare. All right, okay, hope so. But like, so are we? Is that what we're doing now? Or watching on stream now? Let me just gotta make sure I don't. Is this the one that you sent earlier too? And it's not gonna give any spoilers for anything else. The best Sherlock Holmes short. Okay, okay. Let me get everything together. Nope, I don't want captions. Settings. Looks. 480 is what we get. Back in the day, classicism was shoved into education. That's part of it. For which part? I'm sorry. What was I babbling about? The well written or the trope? That it became a trope? So, yes. Oh no. What? I'm sorry. I'm babbling without reading. The part of the Greek references. Oh, fair. Right. Yeah. And it is like I studied English in school, and that was a big part of it. That's why I did, and I was also in theater, so definite combo. So I used to know more of it, and it did end up coming up a lot. So yeah, but it is good though. There's so much to it. So yes, so we're watching the thing. I have to go to bed though. It's 21 minutes. Are we watching? Let me try and figure out if it actually I don't like that though. Hang on. No, what? I do. I babble a lot. Don't watch it, but it could be fun. But again, I do want to, like, there isn't, like, there's no spoilers for anything else. I know I've read them all before, but sorry, I have to figure out how to put it on the. Ooh, why don't I just? Can't I just? Can I just? Nope, that's not what I wanted. Sorry. Oh, nope, that's not going to work. Oh, sorry, hang on. Sorry, I have to figure out a new... discard the changes. It has to be full. But apparently none of my things... okay. I have to add a new one, I think. Unless... maybe this one? No, that one's not gonna work either. Gosh darn it, okay. If I like improv, it's up my alley. I like watching improv. I was never a fan of doing improv because I wasn't good at it. But yeah, no, I was big into theater, so I'll just make a new one. Sorry. Boom. Does that work? Boom. Okay. La da da da. Oh, I have to. Oh shoot. I have to just shoot. Making this difficult. Watch it on my own. Give you a review. It's from the 70s. Okay. You know what? Maybe we shall do that because I do have to go to bed. But yes, definitely. And I'll throw it up in my Discord for anyone else who wants to watch it as well, or the link is in there, so that's fine as well. Yeah, because I'm definitely curious. But oops, here I am again. So yes, I will. I'll do that at.
You want to watch?
We're getting married today.
Oh my gosh, have I? Hang on.
Do that another.
I had the wrong freaking. I always have issues with my sound. I'm so sorry. Anyway, okay, sorry. So I will read it or watch it and give you a review. I'm very excited, but we'll have to go to bed. And that was The Resident Patient and The Greek Interpreter, which I think maybe is one of my favorites so far. Because it was all of the good things. So yeah, that was an evening of Sherlock. Our usual Thursday. And I usually don't raid after my book ones. If you guys have somewhere you'd like to go, let me know. But yeah, I can quick take a gander. But otherwise I might have to just leave it. So yeah, I'll let you guys let me know. Otherwise we'll just head out. Sleep well, thank you. Enjoy the remainder of my week. Thank you. You're flying Friday for football. Nice, sounds good. Excellent. That'll be fun. I hope it goes well. And yes, talk to you later as well. And thank you. Thank you for being here. And thank you all for being here. I do really appreciate it. Thank you for the raid, Mustafa. Thank you for the follows. And yeah, again, just in general, I appreciate you all being here. I know it's different than the flying stuff, but this is my reading's my first love, and I love still being able to do it. And I like being able to share it with you all. So we will be back with flying next week. Shoot, I was gonna say it might be on Monday rather than Tuesday. I'll throw out my Discord. I will let you know for sure. If anyone's not in there and who wants to be updated. Yeah, usually we do flying on Tuesdays. Might have to be Monday next week. And then Thursday should be, again, more Sherlock Holmes. And then we'll be taking a break from that until Spooptober. Because we'll be finishing up the Memoirs of Sherlock Holmes, and then it'll be the next chunk. So then, yeah, we'll finish that chunk, and then we'll wait to start the next chunk until after Spooptober. So, yeah. And then we'll be getting into the spookin'. So, yeah, that'll be fun. So to whoever got lost and found their way here, or found their way back, thanks for being here. I really appreciate it. I really do. Thanks for putting up with me. I hope to see you again soon. And have a great whatever it's going to be for you. It is Thursday, so yes, have a great rest of the week. Have a great weekend. Great holiday weekend. And yeah, all the good things. So, yeah. Can you steal that closing line? Which closing line? I have so many. I should probably pare them down, but pare them down. Sorry. If you ever stream, which one? I suppose I don't care. I don't own any of them. And if you ever stream, do it. It's a lot of fun. Just figure out what you like, and then you get to find people that like it. The one I just said, I babbled out a bunch, so I'm not sure. Okay, I'll run over them. Whoever got lost and found their way here, found their way back. Thanks for being here. Thanks for putting up with me. If I've forgotten anything, brain is mush. Hope to see you again soon. Have a great whatever it's going to be for you. Until next time, all the good things. So, heart. And take care, you as well. And yeah, I think that's it. So thank you so much. Tally ho, Heidi-o. The whoever got lost and found their way here, sure, if you would like. I like that one because honestly, that's how I felt when I started streaming. Is that's the only way people would ever find me. So yeah, I do. I like that one. So yes, tally ho, Heidi-o. Adios, ciao, arrivederci. Maybe, I don't know. Yeah, hasta luego. Thank you so much, and bye.